Hey guys, how you doing? It's Ryan here with DP Marketing.Services and author on the book, author on this book, this book, the book on digital marketing for plumbing and HVAC contractors. Thanks for tuning in. Hope you're doing well. So yeah, if you're new to our Facebook or YouTube or whatever, however you're finding this video, we work only with plumbing and HVAC contractors all over the U.S. and Canada, and we help them to grow their business by getting their digital marketing right. In this sort of stuff, we try to provide a lot of tips and tricks on like marketing and business practices, and just try to help you run a better business all around. So coming at you in that light with a video that I think is very timely, and it's definitely something that does not get any traction on any Facebook groups or trade groups. Like, it's something that this is advanced business thinking, like 401 or 501. And it's actually something that when I was working on my MBA, it's something that we dedicated an entire course to studying. So here's a little background. People make decisions for weird reasons sometimes. And sometimes they're not the reasons we think they are. And that's true for your customers. That's true for you as a business owner or human. People make weird decisions and for strange reasons. And so it's as you are working to grow your business, one of the skills that is a good idea to start developing is this field that's called biases and heuristics, which is kind of a dorky, nerdy academic term. But here's kind of the idea behind this. Bear with me because this will get kind of deep, but and I promise there's applications for you. So don't be like, I don't, what? No. Pay attention. The human brain is a remarkable machine, and it has evolved over time to become incredibly efficient at what it does. One of the things that the brain does as a survival mechanism, of all things, is actually want to conserve calories by not thinking very hard. So it's a true thing that if you overload people with information, their brain starts turning off. They start disconnecting, and you might be noticing this like with customers in a sales pitch, if you're giving them a really technical explanation. For a lot of people, their brain at some point when the brain starts having to work and think, the brain turns off and it actually starts trying to conserve calories. One of the methods that the brain utilizes when it's trying to conserve calories and go in the survival mode is shortcutting of patterns. So, and this is what has developed into this field that of like behavioral economics, which maybe you've heard about or read about, and based on the research of these biases and heuristics. So basically, it goes back to some researchers from Israel, actually back in the 60s, and they discovered like dozens and dozens of these heuristics that people do that are true in everyday life. Like they're all over the place once you're aware of these shortcuts that people do. And the trick is, these shortcuts, people think that they're right or they're good or they're helpful or that they're correct. And almost all the time they're not. Almost every time that there's errors with the outcomes of those shortcuts. But people who are making those shortcuts aren't aware of the errors. It's a really fascinating mental problem. And this is true for federal judges. This is true for baseball umpires. This is true for hiring managers. It's true across the board. So here's a couple of examples. One is called an Odd-Even Heuristic. And so here's how it plays out. Imagine I've got a coin. I don't have a coin, but imagine I'm flipping a coin and I'm going to land on its right. Catch it, flip it, heads, catch it, flip it, heads, catch it, flip it, heads, catch it, flip it. What's the next outcome? If you are like 87% of the people, your instinct is to say tails, because it seems like you should have a tails at some point, right? That's actually a heuristic. Your brain is shortcutting this sense of balance that you feel like you have to have equilibrium, because you think, well, 3 or 4 of those tosses before were heads, surely another has got to be tails. But in reality, every coin flip is a 50-50 outcome. The how it landed on the 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 times before that has nothing to do with the outcome of the next coin flip. Yet the shortcut in thinking is, well, it's going to be tails this time because it's been heads all along. That is one of these fallacies. It leads you to make wrong decisions. So here's an example. Imagine a baseball umpire, and they've done the research on this, right? This is proven data. Imagine you're a baseball umpire and a pitcher is throwing ball, 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 ball. The next one he throws, chances are the umpire's going to call it a strike. Even if it's a really, really, really outside the strike zone. The umpire, his brain shortcutted it. He already thinks it's been enough balls. Surely the pitcher's got it. Surely a strike is coming. And in reality, whatever happens, the umpire's brain has shortcutted the thinking to not even process it as a strike or a ball. This heuristic is shortcutting that decision. The umpire, in most cases, is unaware. It's true. There's another fallacy called the recency bias, which says that you give more credibility and weight to things that you heard more recently than something you heard 5 minutes ago or 15 minutes ago or 15 days ago. So that's one of those things. There's fallacies that come into how you filter information. So one is called confirmation bias. Confirmation bias is when your brain selectively pays attention to the stuff you agree with and ignores the stuff you don't agree with. Like literally, your brain just kind of pretends like it's not there. You don't even notice it. You don't even think that you're ignoring it. Your brain only focuses on the things that you already agree with. And in today's political landscape, it's a very common bias and fallacy to see play out all over social media and even news outlets. There's another called fundamental attribution error. As a manager, I'm speaking for myself here too. This is a tough one. An example of fundamental attribution error, at a high level, it's anything that I do wrong, it's an outside problem. But anything someone else does wrong, it's an internal problem. And so let me use an example to make that make more sense. Imagine you go into a grocery store and you see a single mom and like a young kid, maybe 3, 4, 5 years old, and the kid is screaming and yelling, and the mom is freaking out. She's like, shut up, you're driving me crazy, right? Whatever. If she's like really bearing down on the kid, this bias says, what an awful mom. She must be a horrible parent to yell at her kid and make her kid cry like that for no reason. You see a problem in somebody else and assume it's a character defect, right? It's an internal problem of that somebody else. However, if it's you in the grocery store yelling at your own kid, all of a sudden your rationale flips to, you have no idea what this kid has done to me. Now all of a sudden you are fine, but you have no idea what this kid has done to cause my outburst. So even though the same situation might be true, for somebody else who's having that problem, it's a character problem. It's an internal issue. When you have that problem, it's an external problem. You never would have done it had it not been for that external force. And that's a cognitive bias. This is true for federal judges. They've done research and shows that when they're trying to assess bail or when they're trying to assess immigration hearings, that they know the first couple cases in the day, the judge is going to be very favorable, very lenient. The judge is going to be in the defendant's favor. However, when the judge starts getting hungry, the judge starts getting negative on the outcomes, even if all the merits of the case are actually stronger for the people later in the day. So in a lot of federal judge circuits and a lot of baseball circles, they're actually having to train judges and umpires about these biases. The trick is we all have these cognitive biases, right? They're a part of how our brain operates. And at its core, there's nothing necessarily good or bad about them. It's just that's what they do. The trick is you can't make them better until you actually know about them to actually be aware of those biases when you're in those situations. Like if you're in a grocery store yelling at your kid. That's when you're able to actually make these sort of assessments. As managers, This is true for all parts of your business. For who you hire, we know that there are cognitive biases where people have an idea in their mind of what this person actually looks like. So, for instance, maybe you had an awesome sales manager or general manager before, and you have this picture of what they were like, maybe down to the name. You will filter resumes as they come in, looking for something that triggers that kind of mental picture, even if that person doesn't have the experience or expertise or qualities to do what they want to do. You're kind of matching this mental image with your kind of perceived outcome, and it makes you make bad managerial decisions. Um, there's another one that salesmen often use. This is not going to sound like rocket science to you, but if you're in sales a lot, there's one called anchoring. Anchoring is the first thing you hear will drastically impact the second thing you hear, even if they're unrelated to each other. So sales will often do it like, normally this pen is $20,000, but today it's only $599. The 20,000 may have nothing to do with the price of this pen, but that's the first number that you anchor in somebody's mind. And so now everything else in that person's psyche is comparing those two figures together. As a manager, be keenly mindful of the biases that you carry and the heuristics that you're engaged in. If you're interested in this, I'd be more than happy to share some of, it's a little bit nerdy, but some of the textbook level things of understanding how these biases and heuristics work at a managerial sort of level. Actually, if you've read the book or watched the movie Moneyball, that book is built on the research. It's written based on the research of these scholars in Israel who did all this behavioral stuff. So that is like an application of these biases and heuristics to make a losing baseball team win. It's the same sort of process that goes about it. And in this day and age, it's especially true because chances are, with all the political landscape, with everything COVID and Corona, like there's just a lot of ways where biases and heuristics are being thrown at you, and to help you kind of sort out what's good and what's less good, what's more credible, what's less credible, and kind of challenge your own biases in the process. This is going to make you just a better human. It's going to make you a better business manager, and that's kind of the whole point of these videos. And I know this is kind of an out there topic. It has nothing to do with marketing, but has everything to do with helping you make smarter business decisions. There are, again, dozens and dozens of these biases and heuristics. If you're interested in maybe a list of other biases, or if you're interested in like a list of reading materials to kind of like learn more because you're a nerd like me, leave a comment. I'd be happy to give you some additional reading resources. But yeah, I'm curious to know from you, like, what sort of heuristics or biases are you aware of in your management capacity, where maybe you shortcut decision making that doesn't always lend to the best outcomes? And I'm just curious to know, what do you think of this topic in general? Because I know it's out there. So leave a comment below. As always, guys, follow us on Facebook, subscribe on YouTube, and we'll see you next time. Stay safe.